Most of you watching this video, like me, buy many of our plants in containers, whether it be those little 4-inch pots that have little vegetable starts, or fruit trees like this peach over here. And so we think, hey, what if we just kept it planted in the container? Isn't that possible? It is. In this video, I'm going to talk through some of the pros and cons of planting in the ground versus in a container, so that way you don't squeeze any eye juice out when you're crying and crying over your dead containered plant. So let's get busy. Cameron, welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. Take a second to like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. That way you'll be able to see all the stuff that comes up after this video. Let's take a look at these two trees. Two totally different examples. One that's in a container and one that's in the ground. Now these two trees are part of the same family. This is a peach tree and this is a blueberry, both bought around the same time. They've been sitting out here in the same setting, and yet two totally different experiences. I want to explain, first of all, what happened, and then we can get into some of the pros and cons of container planting versus in the ground. The reason this is looking so bad is because this had significant heat stress and it had a lack of water. And the reason for that is we were using this for our grafting project over there, and so it was sitting on its side, and it was difficult to get water into this and to get it to stay because it would just kind of roll off the front of it. That's a big reason why this particular plant looks like this. But let's talk through some of the pros and cons of containers. What do you notice when you first see this container? You notice that it takes up a certain amount of space and that you're limited to whatever media is inside here. This soil can only hold so much water before it runs out of the bottom or evaporates out of the top. So some of the cons and things to consider when we're talking about a container is that a container is much more sensitive than something planted in the ground to temperature changes, to weather extremes, because it's got only this much thermal mass to deal with. As the sun hits this thing, it's only able to hold so much water before some of it evaporates out, transpirates out through the leaves, whereas something planted in the ground is able to benefit from a much larger system. It's able to draw water from deep down. Another thing has to do with the temperatures. When the sun beats against this little pot heats up and something happens, or when it cools down, it gets cold, and the entire thing down to the roots down here are all experiencing some of those temperature swings. You get a lot more stable soil temperatures in the ground, especially when you do a giant mulch layer on the top. So you have all of that soil that's beneath the ground, and you've got something protecting it from the rays of the sun. Now, any kind of container planting, you should mulch the top of it, but you don't have the benefit of the sides being mulched as well, and so you can still suffer some of those extremes. Now, container planting does have some distinct advantages. The biggest one being its portability. A container, you can do that. I can't do that with this blueberry over here. And so the mobility of a plant is especially pronounced, the benefits of it, if you're in an area that has extreme temperature differences. Like, let's say you've got an avocado that you have outside during the warmest months, but then you move inside during the coolest months if you live in an area that can't normally grow avocados or citrus, let's say. Or let's say you got some heat-loving plant is needing to be moved out into the sun, and you kind of chase the sun around. You can do that as well. So you have a lot more options in terms of caring for your tree and moving it around without it being stuck in a certain spot and making the most of it. Another thing that is really beneficial about container planting is if you live in an area where maybe you're renting and you're not able to plant in the ground, whether it be a garden or putting a fruit tree in. If you're not able to destroy the ground to put something in the ground, having a container allows you to still grow things without having to put stuff in the ground. Also, a lot of times people, if they're renting, they start their stuff in containers with the expectation that when they move to maybe a home that they buy, that then they're going to plant it in the ground. So container planting gives you some options if maybe you don't even have any yard and you just have a patio or a balcony. Containers are really great for that. There are some ways to minimize the liabilities of container planting, and I want to talk about those. First thing to consider, container planting needs more regular watering. And so when you are watering, let's say, a tree in the ground once every week, or in our case, even during the hottest times is like twice a week right now, 100-degree temperatures, you're going to need to water your container plant more regularly. If you go to some of these big box stores, you go to your local nursery, you'll notice that they're watering their fruit trees every day or every other day because that water just leaves the system that much faster. There's a way that you can minimize some of the extremes that your container gets, and that is by using a larger container size. Look at this this 15-gallon container versus this 5-gallon container. Look how much larger this system is compared to this one. That means that this is going to take longer to heat up, longer to cool down. It's got more water retention ability because there's just more soil in there. And so the larger the system, the less extremes your plant is going to experience. Another thing is that in a container, those roots want to go somewhere, and this allows the roots to stretch out a little more instead of getting pot bound or root bound as they call it. I mean, look at this 20-gallon pot that I got. I'm planting my dragon fruit in these things, and look how much space is in here for the roots to go out, for the soil to just kind of disperse all of this stuff. So container has some ways that you can have this be successful. I would say choose the largest container size that you are able to manage. Containers, the bigger the container gets, even though there are some positives, they also can get really, really heavy. Between the weight of the soil and any water that's in there, these can get pretty heavy. This could be 100 pounds, 150 pounds easily if it's fully kind of soaked. And so get the biggest container that you can manage. Something that sometimes people will do, especially on a patio, is to put this on one of those furniture dollies. That's kind of those wood with the wheels on it. And that way they're able to easily move it around their setting. So the bigger the container, the better if you're in a container. When it comes to planting in the ground or in a container, really it just depends on what kind of gardening experience you want to have. If you're like me and kind of busy with other things that you find important, then I just want to have this stuff planted in the ground with a drip system where I come and feed it. And I do take care of it regularly enough, but I can come out and just look at it and just check on things. And that's me because I'm busy and I actually don't want to have to do all of that stuff. But some people like this to be some sort of daily hobby that they do. And so a container plant gives you that option. In addition to the portability of a container, it doesn't get stuck in the ground. I mean, what am I going to do if that pomegranate's in the wrong spot? I can't just move it to another part of my yard or patio. I've got to uproot it and probably kill it. So there's some definite pros to being able to container plant. Just depends on what you want to do. Choose your own adventure. Appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the Busy Gardener channel. If you haven't yet subscribed, we'd love for you to do that now. Hey, whether you've got one plant that you need to get in the ground or a container, or 500, till next time, stay busy.